The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
We've been there.
Greetings to you. Welcome to Faith Without Borders. I'm your host, Pastor Calvin Sauls, and it is a joy to be back with you live and right here out of Lamert Park in South Los Angeles. So glad that you're able to be with us today. Is an exciting show for me. Of course, we're celebrating African American heritage, but as part of that celebration, we are today concluding the 28th annual Pan-African Arts and Film Festival. So I am in Black Heaven, Black Arts and Film Heaven. And today it's just been a joy for me to meet up with just so many gifted and talented filmmakers, actors, writers from all around Africana is what I call it. That is the African diaspora. And was able to bring, to the show today, three of those, gifted actors, writers, and directors to come and be with us here on Faith Without Borders. As you know, our purpose here at Faith Without Borders is to see, how we can engage in the education and the mobilization of multiracial and multi-religious transnational movements for social equity and planetary justice locally, nationally, and globally. And film plays such a powerful role in that because, it enables us to tell our stories from our perspective. And writers and directors and actors, they have, of course, access to these platforms to see how, as, Black people from around the world, we get to tell, our stories from our perspective. And that is what's so powerful about the Pan-African Film Festival. I described it in a post on Facebook this last couple of days that I am excited. The last couple of days I have been enveloped in Black brilliance. Ooh. Because, these folk are gifted and, I'm a movie buff. I love, the arts and it can't get no better than the Pan-African Film Festival. So today, it is a joy for me to welcome to Faith Without Borders, right next to me, Lorey Hays.
Hello.
Who is from the United States and, actor, writer, director. She does it all. And I'm glad that she calls me a friend. So we're good. And we've done several, projects, together. And just really appreciate her passion, and she'll tell us about the movie that she's been a part of here, and then all the way from Lusaka, Zambia, I have my sister Kasuba Mukuka that is here, and the film that she did, she'll tell us about it. Is just very, very powerful, and Lorey. And Kasuba, they were part of, a shorts, series around women taking a stand. And so their short series was just thought-provoking, tackling so many issues that a lot of us don't want to talk about, and so they put it out there, as always with film, for us to, to see how it can provide us with a platform for conversation, and enlightenment, as we do that. So glad that Kasuba is here. We met maybe a year and a half or so ago, attending, 2 events. One with the First Lady from Zambia, the second one with the Ambassador from Zambia, and our mutual friend Robert Sachinga. As always, make sure that that we have access to our folk from Zambia, to tell us about that beautiful country and all of his, cultures. So I'm looking forward to have Kasuba, share with us. And then my brother from another mother, from Durban, South Africa, we have Mpumelelo Keshwa, who is here. Yes, and we just met during this festival. That's what I love about this festival. I mean, it just bridges people. It brings folk together, and so and we were able to connect. So I want to thank Mpumelelo, and I have to say, the film that he has, which is called The Second, I really saw that by accident. Because I went to see another film called Masai Mix, and I was sitting, in the theater, and I'm like, this is not the movie I came to see, but this looks really familiar, so if I'm in the wrong theater, I sure enough am watching the right movie.
Happy accidents all the time.
And so, so that was great. And afterwards, we had a chance to talk, and now we hooked up, forever. So thank you so much for coming, and for all of you for making yourselves available. So we're gonna have some good conversation.
Great.
So we'll start with Lorey. Tell us a little bit about your movie, tackling a very, very controversial subject, and we talked afterwards just about it in terms of how I have theologized around this whole piece about death with dignity, or euthanasia, but why don't you tell us what the film is about, but before we do that, tell us a little bit about Lorey Hays. How about that?
Oh my God.
Who is Lorey Hays?
I ask myself that question all the time. Who is Lorey Hays? Oh my God. I'm a child of God,
all right,
an ambassador who allows myself to be used to tell the stories that need to be told.
Yeah.
So that's how I like to promote myself, because we can't do any of this without the higher power.
That's right.
And I have been so blessed. What a blessed life I have been given. I've been on Broadway. I've done London, in England, Bristol. I've worked with Mongani and Duma and all kinds of South African artists. And my plays have been, the ones that I've written have been produced. I tackle some very heavy subjects too. We'll talk about that one day. And, just been guest starring and in movies. I'm in Dreamgirls with Jamie Foxx. I'm the one that interviews him at the end of the movie. But none of that is as important as this movie. And the reason for it is this movie tackles a subject that most of us don't want to deal with. Most of us don't want to deal with death. Okay, the film is called Dignity for a very, very important reason. First of all, I play a woman, Anna, who's living a life of dignity, enchantment, laughter, honor, respect, and she finds out that she has a terminal illness. And her husband happens to read an article that talks about the new law that was recently passed in California, that if you are terminally ill and 2 doctors say that you only have 6 months, then you can go out with just taking something to calm your nerves and one pill or one liquid that you put in a drink. And you drink it, and it takes a few minutes, and you're gone. So you don't suffer. You don't leave your kids, around to take care of you. One of the hardest things I think I've ever dealt with was my mother and my grandmother. Both, we're Cherokee too. Both, I call them brave, strong warrior women who went out very sadly. And if they had known about this law, I know they would have chosen to go out, as they wanted to, like warriors, like fighters with dignity. And that's what this movie's about. And I'm so proud to be attached to it. And I'm proud to be one of the producers. And, I really think we need to use it around the country to really begin this discussion because it's so important. And the last thing I'm going to say, because I know we need to move on, is I've always felt that death is not about the dying. Death is about the living, the people that are left behind. And the people that are left behind want to control the way the person who's dying dies. They don't want to give them the choice because they are feeling pain.
Right.
But they don't realize the kind of pain and suffering that the person who's really dying feels. And so this law that is now in 8 states, getting to be ready to be 9, gives you an option.
Yeah, and you did a brilliant job acting in it, and again, it was just extraordinary. And again, this is a very controversial, thought-provoking. And you said it, death is an integral part of life.
Yes, it is. And
both culturally, as African people, as well as spiritually, as people of faith. I mean, it speaks to the fact that, there are certain rites of passages in life. There are certain transitions in life. And just as we go from childhood to, teenage years to young adult to adult, et cetera, it's the same thing around, when we transition, on to eternity.
Well, but so many people don't want to deal with that. And you do. You deal with it all the time.
And I think, you can never tell fully why people don't want to deal with it.
Yes.
But I think part of it is because we've just been socialized to think that this is it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people just, and then people are afraid of death. So as I say, culturally, and for me, when I say culturally, I mean as an African, person, and then spiritually, as a person of faith, it's a transition. And so scripture and culture speaks of ancestors, and scripture and culture speaks of, a cloud of witnesses, and scripture and culture speaks of, how ancestors never, depart from us, especially spiritually.
Oh, I believe that
around
totally.
it. So, and so when we talked about it afterwards, and and we were dealing, with that. Now I know you mentioned that about 8 and soon to be 9 states.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about, what the law is about.
Well,
and maybe mention the states, where we have.
Well, I had to write the states down. I typed it up because I couldn't remember. But California, of course, we are very fortunate. Colorado, District of Columbia, Hawaii, Maine, New Jersey, Oregon, Vermont, and now Montana has a new doctor-assisted law. And it's really interesting because one of the first states to have this law was Oregon.
Oh, wow.
I know. I think one of the things that put it on the map was some woman, controversial woman who was 29 years old. Okay, her Brittany Maynard, diagnosed with terminal brain cancer, who moved from California to Oregon to end her life in 2014 because Oregon had the law before California had it. And that's what started states talking about it and what put it on the map and the reason why so many other states are starting to adopt the law.
Yeah. And I know before the Oregon piece, Michigan was dealing with it with Dr. Jacobokian.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And they, call him the doctor
I know.
of death.
I support him.
I'm sorry. And all of that. Yeah. But again, very, very controversial. And again, your film, as film, does, just really puts it out there and invites people into conversation.
Well, the thing that I love about this is because you see the joy, you see the love, you see the life, that all of us are full of life. And so you fall in love with these people. And when they have to make this decision, and of course the daughter does not want her mother to go because she's not ready to suffer this pain, and by that time you've fallen in love with the people. And you don't, some people came up to me and said, I didn't want you to go. And you made me think about my father, my grandmother, my wife, my husband, who's now dealing with these same issues. And I am torn with how to help them, and because I don't want to let them go.
Right.
And and we'll move on. But that's why a lot of people also have a lot of trepidation. Around hospice. And as I work with people around that, to just say to them, it's just about dignity. And it doesn't mean when you're going to hospice you're going to die. Exactly. It's all about care with dignity. A lot of people, came out of hospice because of the care with dignity they received. And should you transition, you see, in dignity. In dignity. And then, we all know about the whole piece around, free will.
Right. That's another thing about that. The law is each state makes sure that there's something in the law that makes sure that people are of sound mind, and that they're a certain age, and that there's no coercion. Somebody trying to force them to die. So, and that's why they use two doctors. Two doctors have to agree. Right. So again, free will is is something that God gives us. Yes, we all have free will, and it's sad that so many times we use that free will in destructive and negative ways. My sense about it is that euthanasia or death with dignity is an opportunity to see how we can utilize free will to see how we can celebrate the dignity of a person and give them the opportunity to transition in such a way that their dignity is maintained and they're able to join that ancestral cloud of witnesses in so way. So thank you for that. Very appreciate it. Thank you. Let's move on all the way to Zambia. One of the countries I hope to get to this year. We'll see. Robert is on me. Kasuba, again, as I mentioned to you, again, it's just so powerful.
Thank you.
And you brought such, substance, style, and depth and creativity to a very, very controversial, subject. So tell us about the movie. Well, who is Kasuba? How about that?
Who's Kasuba? Kasuba's an artist. All right. She is, a passionate writer, now director, and also apparently actor. That's just really passionate about, telling stories that have social impact, some kind of social relevance. I don't want it to just be entertainment. I want to tell stories that matter. I want to speak to people who feel like they can't speak for themselves. I want to talk about my struggles that I know that other people are facing, but can't talk about it. But like you said, film is such a powerful tool in the sense that it is entertainment, but somebody can learn so much from watching something come out of a real situation.
Great. Yeah. So tell us about the film and the subject. Okay.
So I hope I'm not long-winded because I've been working on this film for a really long time. It's called The Long Road Home. And this was the short version that was screened at PAFF. But it's something that I've been working on for so long while I was at the University of Zambia, actually, is when the idea came to me. One of my aunts had just separated from her husband. And I went to visit her. And I just was like, what happened? Because they were like the perfect couple. Everybody looked up to them in the family, and then she says, you know what? I think you're old enough for me to tell you that he was very abusive. And then she began telling me about everything that she was going through in their relationship and just how abusive he was. And then I think the thing that stuck with me the most is that my aunts, who I love so much, they didn't have her back. They told her to stay with him. He's a good man. He takes care of you. We love him in the family. He takes care of us, And I was just like, whoa. I couldn't believe it because I know these people. I love them and I know that they're lovely people, So it just got me thinking about how we as a community, our support or lack thereof of, women that are going through these situations, the culture of silence where women don't speak. My aunt never spoke. She never told anybody what she was really going through except her sisters who were not there for her. So at that point, she was just like, well, I guess I've got nowhere to turn to. She'd go to church. They'll tell her, oh, God hates divorce. So you can't leave your husband. So she really had nowhere to go to. And so I just got interested in the topic, and I just started doing a lot of research on domestic abuse and stuff like that. And I started doing news packages because I was studying mass communication at the time. And then, I was just like, you know what? I think the best way for me to actually get this out there is to make a movie about it. Mm-hmm. So this was, when was I? That was like maybe 2009. And then, I moved back to America and all of that. And I was studying at USC. I graduated about a year ago. I did producing for film, and I wrote it as a feature, and it was my thesis. So I really wanted to do it as a full feature, but I decided to do a short as a proof of concept, and that's what you saw. Yeah.
and I mean, it was amazing when we met a year ago. We talked about that.
Right.
I mean, you introduced, you just basically, claim the fact that in about a year's time, I'm going to have this done. You did say that. I mean, that was like, speaking it into the atmosphere, claiming it.
Yeah. And I believe in that a lot.
Me too.
I really believe in like speaking things out and watching it come to life. I believe in just like manifesting. I manifested PAFF too. I was like, my movie is going to be selected and it's going to screen.
Hello.
But, I forget too that like I really say these things, and I'm like, at this time I'm going to do this.
Yes.
And, it's nice to be reminded that like I did say it and I did it.
And there's a scripture in the Bible about that, speaking into action, the words of your
existence.
tongue.
Yes, So be careful what you say.
That's right.
Just
That's
be
right.
positive. Be uplifting. Because these words might just manifest
That's
itself.
right.
I don't think you actually named the subject. Of the movie. I know in South Africa we talk about Lobola. Or bride price.
And it's called Lobola in Zambia too.
Okay, so I mean, say a little bit about this, especially from a woman's perspective, because we talked earlier on when we were kind of doing some quick prep, and you were saying, when I told you
it's
that the director
the
director was a woman, and we both like, you're right. This was told from a woman's perspective.
Right.
So, just, say a little bit about the subject matter. And how did you, deal with it as a woman?
There's a couple of themes actually, and it's, it deals with obviously the domestic violence. It deals with how the community, how the community responds. The film deals with marital rape, and also brings in the whole Lobola issue. So it's funny, a lot of the questions that I was getting from people that are not from Africa was about the bride price, and they were like, oh, she was bought. And, culturally, I don't think initially that's what it was. I don't think they were selling women. You know what I mean? From what I've been taught, it was just a token of appreciation, for raising a fine woman. And, because now you're bringing her into your family, you're bringing her into your home. So you're like, a little token. But then, with, did you want to say something?
No.
Okay. With just, I guess, capitalism and people getting used to that culture now of, when you spend money on something, it belongs to you.
Right.
Product.
And it becomes a product. And I think that, men kind of got it messed up in the process because that wasn't the thought behind it initially. But then now it's like everything that you buy, everything that you spend money on, you own. And so men feel like they own you because they spent the money, especially if it's a really big amount of money.
The thing that really interested me about your film was the fact that the marital rape part, the fact that she's in a marriage and one person says to her, conjugal rights are he's your husband, so he gets that.
Right.
And yet the way he decided to have conjugal rights was abusive.
Right.
And no one would stand up for you for that reason because of the culture.
Exactly. And, it's a concept that a lot of women don't understand. And even, when I screened the film, a lot of women came up to me and said, oh my gosh, that has happened to me. And I knew it was not right, but I didn't think it was rape. And it's just, it's something that is just not criminalized in enough countries. About 60% of the world don't criminalize it. The countries that do hardly enforce it. You know, so women aren't really protected. And something interesting that somebody else said to me was, in the film, she has a friend who says, look, I'm not always in the mood either, but my husband insists.
Exactly.
And they're like, well, is that rape too? And it's just like, look, if it's not consensual, you know what I mean? And in my film, it's very abusive. He beats her up and all that stuff. And so it's clear as day that is, but like, it doesn't have to be that for it, you know what I mean? For it to be marital rape. But it's something that is not talked about a lot. Yes. You know, women hardly talk about being beaten up. You know what I mean? Let alone being raped by their husband because people won't understand. Yeah. And sometimes even they themselves don't understand. They know that something's wrong, but they don't realize that it's actually a concept. Marital rape.
Well, the other thing that you deal with in the film that you should talk about too is the fact that they force you to drink this potion, and who knows what this potion will do. I was watching some film, the one on The Crown, where this woman was trying to get pregnant. She was drinking a potion, but the potion was made with this water that carried this disease in it, and it was killing people. So your character is forced to drink this because they think if you're not having children, it has to be your fault. It can't possibly be the husband's fault.
Yeah,
exactly.
That was interesting.
So again,
it's a lot to unpack.
But I can see it happening to one person in one relationship.
Right,
it makes sense.
Yeah. And you see, the film is amalgamated from true events. You know what I mean? It's fictional narrative, but it's really inspired from people that I know. And there is a person that I know whose husband's family was forcing her to drink this in order for her to get pregnant. So it's all like real.
So we cannot wait for the long version.
Tell us the name of the film again.
The Long Road Home.
The Long Road Home.
And again, I mean, just very, very thought-provoking. I mean, you bring up so many subject matters, in terms of just, how do we define relationships, healthy relationships? How do we define marriage?
Yes.
What is consensual? And how do we facilitate mutual respect, within those relationships? How we allow culture, to supersede the humanity and the dignity of people. People are producers of culture.
Exactly.
That's very, very important.
Exactly.
So just as people produce culture, people can adjust culture. I mean, that's really, that's why I wanted to see Maasai mix, because that's what I've just appreciated about the Maasai people. They're willing to make the necessary adaptation when they realize that their cultural tradition is causing destruction.
Wow.
So that's very, very powerful in terms of how we never surrender our integrity.
Right.
To be able to to adjust what we need to adjust and realize, you know what, that tradition don't work no more.
It's not serving us.
Yes, it's not serving us.
Yeah.
And that's the purpose of tradition. It's to serve, people in terms of us becoming better, us becoming more cohesive, building community. And if any tradition is, disrupting, beloved community, we're going to have to kind of, relocate and re-examine it.
Culture is fluid. Like honest reality, culture is fluid, and we really tend to forget that as humans.
Right. We think that it's just so fixed.
It should stay here in one level, but it really should.
And then before we know it, culture becomes God, and now we worship culture.
Yes.
And all of that. That's, again, cultural gods, I always say, make very good gourmet burgers,
That's a good one.
I wasn't even expecting that.
Gods make good gourmet burgers.
I'm like, anything that violates the people's, humanity, dignity, and divinity, is not worth,
keeping,
keeping or embrace to be practiced.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for. We'll talk some more about that. So glad that I was able to connect with Mpumelelo, and again, people talk about coincidences. I talk about God incidences, and really, seeing your film and being really in the right place at the right time. Was extremely powerful, and I told you that because as a person of faith, I'm looking at this retelling of a messianic return
Yes.
from a Black African perspective. Again, seen through the Zulu culture and traditions, and we even talked about that. Around some of the connections. So glad to have you.
Thank you so very much.
And for making yourself available. So tell us a little bit about the second.
Okay. The second, basically the nativity story in rural South Africa, back at the tail end of apartheid. So what many people don't know, when apartheid, during the late 80s to the early 90s, apartheid was pretty much apartheid in name only. But that doesn't mean violence wasn't existent. And a lot of violence in my province of KwaZulu-Natal was committed between the two main Black political factions. And there was tension. I know for a fact that my own family from my mother's side have political history, and I have one uncle from my mom's side who had to flee to Nigeria in exile because he was scared of what could happen at home. And I do have another one from my father's side with the same type of story. So, yeah, the second is just the birth of a country, to be honest, the birth of peace in a country. So that's why it was set at that specific time. So that's the journey I wanted to take people through that microcosm of this, because it's about the through line, the arrow that I went with was to take Joseph's character, because he's the most interesting person to me in that entire equation of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph.
Yeah,
Joseph was an absolutely external figure to everything. Mary had the divine blessing. Jesus is the divine. And Joseph is a guy.
It's like
Exactly.
Shall we say he was a sidekick?
Yeah, he was very much a sidekick. Now imagine, yeah. So that really informed how I wrote this movie and these characters, was to look at what makes a guy, regular Joe, come out and say, you know what, I'm with this. I will take this woman who I have a history with, who may or may not have cheated, but I believe that there is something great here. And I will choose to see this through. That element of choice in wanting to be a part of this life, it really informed my perspective for making the second.
Right, because Mary was chosen.
Mary was chosen. She had the divine code. She had it all.
Right.
And Joseph...
And her chosenness actually disrupted, what the two of them had.
Right.
It did.
Yes.
It was very much a cause of friction. But the guy, again, he chose that choosing, that decision to be like, no, I will take this in my hands.
Right.
I will deliver baby Jesus.
Wow.
So that was the idea. Yes. Yes.
Look, man, I was sitting there saying, Lord have mercy. The metaphors that you use, the images, you even have, the three guys that show up to actually, kill them.
Spoilers.
Yes. And they basically say, we have gifts. And then you had this woman, that was like the angel, I guess.
Yes.
That kept kind of working with Joseph.
Reinforcing him,
yes. Just kind
Gabriel
of
was a woman.
Gabriel was a woman. so let's
a
talk.
black woman.
A black woman.
Ooh, I like that.
So I mean, why? I mean, in terms of just the gender.
The gender swap. It's about storytelling. One, that women in our culture are very much the storytellers of it all.
Yeah.
And I wanted to. We have a very, as much as the Zulu culture is very patriarchal, we give a whole lot of damn respect to our moms. So we have this sort of matriarchal setup. So we very much respect the elderly woman in our community. And so I wanted to give that a face in my movie and give it a face of divinity. Because I believe black women are divine. Okay?
Wow.
All right,
I'm with it.
Yeah.
I'm with it.
Thank you.
We're going to receive that.
Yes,
And
we
we're going to
definitely
affirm
receive
and
that.
celebrate that.
Yes.
But I mean, I think that is so important, especially, talking about it from an African perspective, because there's just this image that's being portrayed out to the world around the powerlessness of women in Africa.
Yes.
And here we have a young, beautiful African woman who's doing some extraordinary work. African American, woman, who just has such depth, in terms of just a giftedness and beauty in Lorey and what she does, and then you basically lifting up.
And Mary isn't a slouch in this movie either, by the way.
Right.
Mary owns her spot. Like yes, I talked about Joseph, but Mary's got some fire in her.
In fact, at some point, Joseph is reluctant, is kind of, indecisive. And Mary said, Joseph,
we're going to do it.
We're going to do this. And if you don't want to do it with me, I'm fine. But I'm going through with this. So she has made a choice, and she invites him to make a choice.
Funny to see.
We've got to screen that. I think the three of us should screen our pieces together.
Oh, that would be beautiful.
Really,
all right, we're going to
make that happen.
Making plans.
Yeah, yes. So that was just powerful. I want to get back, to, just the before I go there. One thing that was so powerful for me around, we have full length, films, and then we have these shorts. And these shorts are, I mean, you talk about potency.
Yes.
They slap.
I mean, they're like to the point, and it's like, bam!
Because you only have 26 minutes max.
To kill it.
26 minutes to pack it all in. And a lot of times what happens with the narratives, because I have nothing against narratives. There was one that was absolutely brilliant, but a lot of them, what happens is because they have so much time, they meander and they don't take time to really develop the characters, to really pack the punches that need to be packed. So the shorts, to me, were off the freaking chain. They were so good.
Yeah.
And the short series that the two of you were part of was called Women Take a Stand.
Ooh, and they took a stand.
Yes, and what were some of the other topics that we tackled in your
Jax was one of my favorites.
Yeah, Jax was a really good one.
Because Jax was very lighthearted, and it's really about a mother having to show her daughter that you don't have to be bullied by anybody.
That's right. So that one tackles the issue of bullying.
Yeah, issue of bullying.
There was a lot of domestic violence.
There were other two were the one about the painter, that was domestic violence. And
then Happened One Night, I guess, was sexual assault.
Sexual assault, but it was also about a woman's choice with whether to get an abortion or not.
Which is in mine, too.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, I mean, so I mean, this is the ingenuity of the Pan African Film Festival is how they've grouped all of these shorts together. I mean, there was LGBTQI shorts. There was Black in America,
Pan African Film Series short.
Yes.
There was the Black Fathers and Sons short. Yes, they had a bunch of really strong ones.
It's created so many, But again, given the shorts that you all were a part of, I mean, tell us a little bit about what that experience was like in terms of all of these powerful women unleashing their creativity by way of film, tackling these. Topics and issues that adversely affect women, and the platform to just bring some perspective to it. What was it like?
Well, he said something very important. He said women are divine. On Tuesday night, I'm going to be doing a performance. I do live performances too. And I do a piece called We Black Women Spirit Warriors. And it talks about the divinity of women. And the fact that you step on the soil and you step on us, plant your seed inside us, become us, and that you men are polished with the blood of We Black Women Spirit Warriors.
What we say in South Africa, in isiZulu, is wathinta umfazi, wathinta imbokodo.
Yes, sir.
So if you touch a woman, you're touching a rock.
Yeah. Ooh, I love that. Oh my goodness. That is so beautiful.
That was the slogan, right, from the first Women's March in South Africa. So when we celebrate the Women's March here that took place after the election of 45+1. But, when that happened, I mean, we really reflected back on the stand that women took in South Africa way back, against white supremacy, against racism, against sexism, against, dehumanization. And that was the slogan. Why don't you say it again for us?
Wathinta umfazi, wathinta imbokodo.
All right now.
Wathinta umfazi, wathinta imbokodo.
It sounds so good.
Whatever it is, it sounds good.
It sounds so good. Zulu just sounds so good.
Yeah, that's right. If you strike a woman, you struck a rock. Watch out now.
But you know what? Okay, as a woman of color living and having been born in the United States, when we think about Africa and we think about African women, and I know a lot of it has to do with media, we think about them being subservient. That's what we really think about. The fact that, marriages, what do you call it? When you marry, a man can have more than one wife. Polygamy. Oh, yeah, hello, brain. Hello, brain. Polygamy still exists. I was working with an African woman. I don't want to call her name because we're still working on the project. And in New York, we're creating this project about her life, which was, even though she was of royalty, the things that she had to do to put herself in a subservient position because of the culture. So do you see that changing now? Or are there things that we can do to help? You are, what do you call it? When you're different, anomaly?
Okay.
Yes. Well, that's what we think of. When we think of Africa, we still think of most women being under the control of men.
Yeah, but I mean, and I'm going to ask you, let you answer that. I think that's part of why a show like this is so important for me in terms of, the conceptualization of it. It's really trying to see how we can break through the stereotypes and how we can break through, the stories that were told about us to each other. There were stories told, about African Americans to Africans, and stories told about Africans to African Americans, and the same source that's been telling these two stories is the source that's been oppressing us, and it's the source that's been marginalizing us, and so we have to really reclaim space and platform to see how do we now really begin to listen to each other
and these
watch
films
each other,
do it.
And the Pan-African Film Festival becomes an extraordinarily powerful platform.
Yes, it does.
To do that. Because,
it really does.
I mean, here we are.
Yes.
These, but you want to say a little bit about that, Kasuba?
I definitely think it's a stereotype. That is not a fact of what life is like in Africa. And I think that it's definitely changing, and women are definitely becoming stronger and having more of a voice. But that doesn't mean that those situations don't exist now. You know what I mean? And I think that my film is also a good example of that, of where this man is trying to, oppress this woman, but then, she takes it into her own hands at the end. And it takes strength to do that.
It does.
It takes strength to break out of a situation where you're being oppressed, beat by your intimate partner and your family. You feel like, you know what I mean? But that strength of a woman, for her to be like, I can't do this anymore. And if this is what I have to do, not keep the child or whatever. If that's what I have to do, then I'm going to do it to get myself out of that situation.
But you still have that character, the police officer, which was a very dynamic character. I loved her. And the fact that she was very gentle with you, but she told you the facts.
Yeah.
She said, are you sure that you want to go out there and tell these men that you were raped by your husband?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? What are they going to do? They're going to laugh at you. They're going to put you down.
She knows my film.
She knows. It was a great film.
It was just...
it was amazing.
I mean, I was just stunned by the content.
Yeah.
And that's why I was so appreciative of the conversation afterwards. And as I mentioned, I mean, these shorts just do I mean, it's just so, it's filled with power, with potency, you know, and all of that, you know, using brevity.
Yeah.
You know, like you say, like less than 30 minutes.
Yes, less than 30 minutes.
You know, to kill it. You know,
And for him to tell
or
a
to bring it to life.
I'm so sorry. I also just wanted to say that, like, I have a dilemma actually in the stories that I'm going to tell, you know, because I want to portray something very positive about Africa. Because there's a lot of positive stuff about
and
Africa.
we need it.
You know what I mean?
That don't get out, and we
Yeah.
have to make sure
We
that
need
we
that,
get
like
it.
yours.
Yeah.
And we need to like put it out there. We need to show people
Yes.
what Africa
Yes.
is really like.
Yes.
But at the same time, I want to show what it's really like, not just the good. You know what I mean?
And that's important. And I think with the challenge that we have here in America is they want to put the burden on one person to tell all the stories.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't. So if you want to talk about what it's really like, you should be able to do that. Somebody else like you can talk about the good part. The you know the beauty of Africa, or somebody else can talk about what the scenery look. You know, we should have the monies behind us to be able to tell all
right,
of the
just
stories.
like the way it is in America.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
We still don't tell we still don't.
Like we'll have like films about like the violence and stuff like that,
Then
and
the
then you have like
comedies,
then
the
you have
love
the comedies and all
stories.
of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I feel like I have a pressure to only say like the great.
You should tell your stories and let somebody else. We need to raise somebody else to tell the other stories. Now you have a partner, and then there are 3 or 4 other ones that can tell those other stories. Yeah. You tell your truth.
Right.
We need your truth.
Yes. And also, I mean, this is one piece that I love about what my, friend and your friend, Richard Gant, when we were together in Ethiopia and we were able to create a forum for conversation with filmmakers there with Richard. And he said, I mean, he was clear. He said, one piece of advice I want to give you is do not imitate Hollywood.
Exactly.
Instead, participate and collaborate to develop and to articulate your own story.
Exactly.
I have
in
this,
your own way.
Yes.
I have this thing
that
where
was just powerful in terms of that.
Well, I realized the reason why the West tells the stories that they tell is because they are informed by everything that's around them. And as Africans, we shouldn't be informed by the West to make our stories. That's wrong. We should be looking inside ourselves and looking at our perspectives and our realities. Because if you look at the East filmmaking is distinctly Eastern.
Yes.
And they're killing it. They're not relying on
really
Western
are.
conventions.
Yes.
They're not relying on norms and yes, they're not relying on what the West does because they have something in themselves and they're proud of that. And then I think what we lack is resources, but we do have storytellers.
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, you definitely
We've always had stories.
We've always had, yes.
Yeah.
But now there are more platforms to allow these storytellers to come out and tell your unique stories in your way.
Yeah, and it's a great time right now where people are open to it.
Yes.
I remember just 2 years ago when I was in grad school, I would be pitching my stories and like nobody was interested. You know what I mean? And I'm like, look, I didn't come here to like pitch American stuff. Like I'm born and bred. I've been here 7 years, but I'm still born and bred in Zambia. That's what I know. Yeah. And I want to tell stories from where I'm from. I want to teach you guys about where I'm from.
And we need that.
You know what I mean? But like just 2 years ago, it was like, okay. And then now it's on PAFF.
Yeah, and I think, African Americans, Lorey can play a tremendous role in helping Africans understand how to accept and articulate your own story, because African Americans had to do that in this country,
in another land,
fighting Hollywood, and that's why you had the John Singletons, and you have the Spike Lees, and you have all upcoming filmmakers, and they bring that unique perspective of saying that I might be in America, but my community. Right. We have, and we haven't even scratched the surface around the amount of stories that can be told about the black experience here, and my gosh, in terms of the insurmountable amount of stories that can be told from the 54 countries on the continent, and so newsflash, we want to just let you know that what's West ain't best. What's West is West. Let what's African be African.
That's right.
Well, we want to talk a little bit about, because I know, the festival is ending today, of course, with a great movie called Zulu Wedding. Hey.
And it won an award, too.
And,
Oh, yeah.
really?
Yeah,
What
it
award?
did.
Best first feature.
Jewelry.
Best first feature,
Yeah.
Jewelry award.
Oh,
for
Jewelry
best-
Award?
Yes,
For best
Jewelry
first
award.
feature. Yeah.
And I worked with Darren DeWitt Henson and Carl Anthony Payne. Darren DeWitt Henson and I starred in a film here at the Pan African called Happiness with Vanessa Simmons, who's Russell Simmons' daughter. We did that in 2017. And then Carl Anthony Payne and I have a movie that is fabulous. It's called A Heart That Forgives. Wow. It's a faith-based film that is winning awards all over the globe. And it's really wonderful.
So when is it coming here?
I'm going to call Ken and say, Ken, bring the movie here.
Please call Ken. Tell him there's some black folk in L.A.
We need it.
In Lamert Park.
Yeah.
That's ready to roll on this. Again, the festival, again, I don't call it's ending tonight, because for me the festival propels us.
It does.
Into, what do we do now on the next level around that. You've been, part of, the festival, and that in itself is an honor. So, of course, congratulations, because I know they have thousands of entries.
They
and
do.
So just to be selected is just like, yes.
Well, you touched on a very important subject, and I think we need to talk to Babu about this. I think there needs to be an ongoing monthly screenings of films that were in the festival. Take one theater at the Magic Johnson and just screen those, and just for the entire year until the festival rolls back around. Because people miss there were over 225 films. Yeah. We couldn't see them all.
Yeah.
I want to see your movie.
So we have two ideas that came out of this.
Yes.
We're going to be recording this, Babu. We're going to play this for you, brother. Because we got evidence.
That's right.
And testimony.
That's right.
Around these requests, around, maybe doing ongoing, screenings for conversation and dialogue. And then to see if we can screen these three movies together.
Yes.
Right.
Okay,
I
so
would
we're gonna
love
make
that.
Yeah.
That would be great.
So tell us, a little bit about what's next, for you, because you've now been set up in a good way. Right? So what's next for you, Lorey?
Well, I am performing at Black Aesthetic. You can't see this, I know. Okay, we're at Antioch University this coming Tuesday, the 25th, 6:30 to 9:30, and we're doing something called Black Is. We're really talking about Black art and culture and how it affects us. So it's really a dialogue with the community, but we're going to perform to get it started, and I get to do We Black Women Spirit Warriors.
All right now.
And, we're Clarence Williams is the moderator who's put it together. He's amazing. So it's
yes, and it's gonna feature Lynn Connor, Denise Hamilton, Dale Madison, Gerald Garth, Lorey Hays, and Tamika Washington Miller. Yay.
And Tamika's mother runs Lula Washington Dance Studio.
Oh, yeah. So I've worked with her.
Give them the address because it's free.
So Tuesday, February 21st, 6:30 to 9:30. 400 Corporate Point, first floor, Culver City. So it's not that far.
That's on Slauson Avenue, just before you get to the old Fox Hill Mall.
Yeah, I see that.
Antioch University.
Yeah. All right. And Black Is, it's a community conversation on the Black aesthetic in art, culture, social media, politics, film, pop culture, and everything else. Black Is.
That's right.
Watch out, man. So that's great. We're going to try and see if we can send this to us electronically. So
I will.
Push
Oh,
it
and
through
one
social
last
media.
thing. I got cast in a new film.
All right.
Yay, congratulations.
Thank you.
You can say what it is.
It's
yet?
called Life.
Okay.
Yes. So it's so new. I don't have.
Did you
all
just
the-
find out?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Drum roll.
Thank you. Yes. So excited.
So that means Lorey will be back. We're going to talk about
I'll
that.
be back.
All right. What's next for you?
Kind of a lot. Kind of a lot. I mean, like I mentioned, this film is a feature. And this was just a short to help me, just as a proof of concept. but at the same time, it's like I've been working on this so long
Something
that
new
like,
in
yeah,
the system,
exactly.
I
Like
know.
writing is my first love, and I've been writing. And I'm kind of ready to, people really want this as a feature. And like, I'm like, okay, fine. Like, if you have the money, we can do it. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'm cool. Like, we can do it. The script is there. But I have been writing. And right now I just wrote another feature. And it's loosely based on my mom and her mom. So it's a mother-daughter story. It's a mother-daughter story, and it's a coming-of-age story that deals with mental health. My mom's mom was schizophrenic, and people in the community did not really understand it, especially at that time. And so she was basically banished from the community and sent back to the village. And, my mom had she didn't understand it. She was very young when her mom left. She was 10 years old. And so she had a lot of resentment issues, and so the film is basically a story about this young woman's journey into understanding now what she knows about mental illness and a reconciliation with her mom before she goes.
It's beautiful.
Again, you're touching a very important issue there around mental illness and all that.
Yes.
We would want to talk about how to support that full-length film. So we'll talk about how to connect you maybe with the Black Women for Wellness to try and see how they can shake, their network.
Yeah.
Because they're all about, women's empowerment, telling stories from women's perspective, and wellness and health and all of that. So, we want to try and see how we can do that. Yeah.
That's
so
amazing.
Kasuba will be back when she talks about that full-length film.
Yeah. Definitely will be back.
What's next for you, my brother?
I got a couple of things next. One, I have this idea for a TV show, not concretized yet. It's called Izinganegwane. So that's going to be an anthology series of distinctly African genre stories that me and my colleagues are busy making. But for me personally, I have a sci-fi concept in the works, set in the townships of South Africa. Ooh. It's basically E.T. meets Terminator with a little bit of City of God, just for the coming of age.
I love this. I love it.
Yeah, and then I also have a horror idea dealing with racism. It's about an all-white community that kidnaps black people from a rural community and turns them into monsters for propaganda purposes. The rest would be spoilers, so I'm going to keep it on the DL.
Yeah, keep it on the DL.
You'll find out. And I'm not opposed
to... South Africa too?
Of course, everything is set in South Africa. Yes, I'm South African. I can't change that.
That's right. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to see how we can maybe at some point do some conversation with you being in Durban. We can do it here because we can, utilize Skype.
Oh yeah,
I'll try and do that. Yeah.
I'm back in America literally next month for another film festival in Mississippi. Then there's one I have to go to in April and another one in June. So I'm a man who's around now.
All right.
Oh, great.
Yes, sir. Come around, man.
Yeah, wouldn't mind stopping by to LA. It's dope. So yeah.
So before we got to the studio, I took him through Lamert Park.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that was like rolling up through Soweto.
Yeah.
It felt very homely. It was like, hey, it's for people. Yes.
Oh, you saw the drumming, you saw Chishinyama, okay, some barbecue going, and just...
it's beautiful, though. I love it.
It's very beautiful.
That's why I'm just so excited to support, Felicia here at, Morris Media Studios, because it's on Crenshaw, and it's in Lamert Park. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's like, the hub for black culture, here in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm excited to broadcast from here.
Yeah.
And from here, connecting to the world,
mm-hmm.
Around that. Thank you so much. My sisters, my brother, Lorey Hays.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. And I'm looking forward to all the work we're going to do together. Kasuba, thank you.
Thank you.
Looking forward to see, what else is going to be created. And then, of course, Mpumalelo. Thanks for taking the time to come and hang with the brother. Yes. And all of you, of course, are pregnant with possibilities.
Woo!
So we claim that.
Yeah.
In terms of just creating and communicating. Just who we are as black people, not just in the United States, but around the world. And that's what it's about, and so we want to say to, Ayuku Babu, who's, my brother, friend, mentor, elder, he and, so many, who co-founded this and created this platform called the Pan-African Film Festival in its 28th year now. So we want to just, thank, Babu and his entire team for once again coordinating and facilitating, and organizing and mobilizing, a lot of resources for an extraordinary Pan-African Film, arts festival. And so, again, I was, traveling out of the country, so I was able to catch, a couple of days, and it was enough for me to just, be there. And we want to congratulate all of the, the writers, directors, and the actors for just all of the work, they've done. And I mean, just so many movies. I mean, the opening movie, Hero, is just powerful. It's playing again tonight at 9:30. And then, of course, we're closing out with a South African, film called Zulu Wedding, and there'll be a reception afterwards that's sponsored by the South African Consulate, General, here in Los Angeles. And so that's what Faith Without Borders is about, is to really try and see, how we can, amplify our faith in such a way that it, it repositions, deconstruct, borders, whether they are, imaginary or real, in such a way that we are able to connect with one another in terms of our humanity and our dignity. And when we do that, we can then collaborate to see how we can all participate in, the liberatory work that the planet needs from all of us. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. This has been Faith Without Borders, and I am glad to be your host, Pastor Calvin Sauls. Peace.